Hi everyone, welcome back to the next diecast. In today's video, I'll be opening up and testing out 4 more HO scale locomotives. I got these 4 HO scale locomotives from trains.com for various prices. These actually came from 3 separate online orders that I bought, or that I got, I should say, from trains.com. We have a Pennsylvania Railroad freight locomotive, a Reading Lines freight locomotive. It's actually a GP30, and then 2 different CSX F7 locomotives. It actually is an A unit and a B unit pair. So I'll be testing those out together once I get to those. But the Pennsylvania Railroad locomotive was about $30. It's by AHM, as you can see right here. And the Reading GP30 by Bachmann was around $31. And then for the CSX A unit and B unit locomotives, they together were about $75 in total. So in total for all 4 of the locomotives that I have here, I paid around $140 for all of them. And that includes like shipping and taxes and everything. So I thought that was a really good deal. So we'll go ahead and get all of these unboxed and tested out. The Pennsylvania Railroad locomotive by AHM will be the first locomotive that we open up and test out here. It's all wrapped up in this bubble wrap, as you can see. I actually forget what type of locomotive this is. I think it's on the side flap. I'll take a look. But in the meantime, we'll get this opened up from the bubble wrap here. And there we go. It's actually in pretty good shape, too. Trains.com apparently did test this, and it did run according to the listing that they gave on their website. I'll actually get all 3 of these opened up, or all 4, I should say, opened up, just so you can see them, and then I'll test them each out. So this is the Reading GP30 locomotive by Bachmann, and Trains.com did test this one out as well, and it should run. But look at that. That looks really nice and well detailed and everything. Then we have the 2 CSX locomotives. They're numbered 116 and 119. 116 is the F7A unit, and 119 is the F7B unit. But there's 116 right there. This is in pretty much new condition. Although, I mean, Trains.com did test these out, but I don't think they were ever ran that much before. Whoever sold them to Trains.com sold them to them. And here's 119, the B unit. But now, since we have all these out, you can see how they look. And then we will test them out on the track. So we'll start with the Pennsylvania Railroad locomotive, number 6500 by AHM, and then we'll just go from top to bottom. Give you one more look at all these locomotives from top to bottom here. And even without testing these, I can already tell that they're already in good shape, and I think they'll all run quite well. And I'm definitely happy that I got them for the prices that I got them at. But I don't know for sure if I should be happy once I run these. All right, the Pennsylvania Railroad GE U25C is the first locomotive that we have here by AHM. As you can see, the box is in pretty rough shape, but the locomotive apparently does run. And it's actually in pretty good cosmetic shape, too. It was a little bit dusty, but I always like the looks of these GE U-boats, I believe they nicknamed them. And this locomotive did exist in real life, too, and it looks like it's a good model. So we'll go ahead and get it up on the track and see if this runs. All right, got the locomotive up here on the track. We'll see how it runs. Get slow. There we go. It's funny, these AHM locomotives all kind of sound similar and run similar, but they're quick runners, nice and reliable, as you can see here with this Pennsylvania locomotive. Really nice. All right, we'll see how it does backwards. Does not have directional lighting, but still runs really well. And the lights do work. Wow, quick runner. All right, well, this Pennsy locomotive, I'm actually really impressed with it, based off how it runs and everything. We'll see how it runs with some freight cars next. I'm sure it'll do just as good as it did without freight cars. All right, got the Pennsylvania locomotive with this hopper car train going on here, and a Pennsylvania porthole window caboose here in the back, made by a Bowser. Thought this would match up well with this Pennsylvania locomotive here. And you can see here that there is some like residue and stuff on the roof and everything. There is a few like paint scratches and everything like that too. But I mean, you saw how good this locomotive ran by itself. But I imagine it will run similarly with this hopper car train. But let's see if that happens right now. There it goes. And Pennsylvania, speaking of Pennsylvania, got the GG1 and the passenger train in the back here. But anyway, back to the Pennsylvania freight locomotive. Runs good with the hopper cars too. Nice and quick. Kind of on the noisy side, but AHM locomotives pretty much always sound like this, like I already said. Wow. Sounds great. I think for less than $30, this ran really well. You know, it's a little bit worse for wear in terms of cosmetics and all that stuff. But I mean, having a functioning locomotive for less than 30 bucks, that's, you know, complete, like there's no missing railings or any other like missing parts like that. And it just runs well and everything too. I think this is definitely a great deal. These AHM locomotives, I think, really are quite reliable, and they've surprised me in terms of how quick they are to just, you know, jump back into action, I guess we'll say, after sitting for quite some time. This GG1 back here is made by AHM. And same thing, it hadn't been run for quite some time, and then as soon as I got it on the track and powered up, it just, you know, raced around. So happy to see that. Was definitely glad that I found this on trains.com when I did. All right, the Bachmann Spectrum Reading Lines GP30 locomotive is up next. You can see it's in the standard Bachmann Spectrum box. Not sure when this locomotive was manufactured, but Bachmann used this style of box, I think from the 90s through sometime in the 2000s, but nice looking box. I know I had it opened up before, but we're just going to reopen it now. One underneath that paper, and then there's a locomotive right there, Reading Lines 5520. So we'll get this pulled out from the packaging. And there we go. There's our Reading Lines GP30. Always liked this paint scheme for the Reading Railroad locomotives from like the 1960s into the 1970s. Looks good in the yellow and green. Nice paintwork on there. These Bachmann Spectrum locomotives are actually pretty well done. It does have the horn hook couplers as well. Looks like it was never run. Look at how clean the wheels are. We'll get it up on the track. All right, here's the GP30. We'll see how this one runs. Got it on the wider track to start, so there we go. Kind of slow, but runs smooth. This might have directional lighting on it too. A little bit faster. I'd say this runs well. I think these Bachmann Spectrums are pretty solid locomotives, so I was kind of expecting it to run like this, and I'm glad it is. All right, let's see how it does backwards. Yep, directional lighting. Always a cool touch on these HO scale locomotives. that runs really well, especially for the price that I paid for it. Looks good next to that Santa Fe and BNSF locomotive there. Pull it on up. Oh, there is actually a couple of engineers inside the cab there, as you can see there too. Painted figures, which is always cool to see on these Bachmann Spectrum locomotives. But yeah, I think this ran well, and I'm impressed with it. We'll see next how it runs with a set of freight cars. All right, let's see how this Reading GP30 locomotive runs with this hopper car train here. Got the bobber caboose in the back here. Got this a little while back to go with another Reading freight locomotive that I have right up there. But I thought that this would also go well with this Reading locomotive as well. So we'll see how this runs with this freight consist. Pretty good. Nice and smooth. Caboose is kind of out of place with this train, but that's the only one I had with the Reading name on it. But it still looks good, I guess. The main thing is the locomotive. Seems to run well with this hopper car train here. A bit on the slow side and kind of noisy, but it is an older Bachmann. Give it a bit more speed there. All right, I'd say that this Reading GP30 locomotive is a great runner, as you saw here with this hopper car train. Definitely glad that I found this one from trains.com. All right, last but not least, we have the F7 A and B unit CSX locomotives by the Athearn brand. These look really nice. CSX did actually run these locomotives in real life into the 1990s. Passenger and freight trains were pulled by these locomotives, but these still have the parts in their paper envelopes, it looks like. I'm thinking it probably, because I don't see any couplers on these, so they're probably inside these bags, but I will take a look and see. All right, so at least for the B unit, here's the F7B unit, number 119. I love this particular paint scheme on CSX locomotives. They used this paint scheme, I think it was called YM3, from like the early 1990s until the early 2000s. But here's the contents of the paper envelope. The couplers are in this pile, as you can see, and there are actually a couple of horns as well that I can mount to the roof of the A unit. I assume the A unit has the exact same parts bag. Turns out both did have the same parts bags. Here I have the horns mounted on the roof of the A unit, and I also put on the coupler. I decided to keep the coupler off the front part, and I did also install the headlight lens, but we'll see how this runs. There we go. Light's a little flickery. There it goes. Yeah, these Athearn blue box locomotives from like the 1990s into the 2000s always run really well. Looks like this one is pretty much like that as well. Awesome. Wow. We'll see how this does backwards. Doesn't have directional lighting. These older Athearns usually did not, but it still runs good. All right. Wow. Looks good and runs good, definitely. We'll see how the B unit runs next. And here's the F7 B unit, number 119. We'll see how this runs. There it goes. Wow. This actually seems to run a slight bit better than the A unit, which is interesting. Let's see how it does the other direction. I wouldn't say forwards or backwards because the B unit is cabless, so it doesn't really matter. Or there is no direction, I guess I should say. But there it goes the other way. Cool stuff. All right, we'll see how they run together. There they go. They run good, coupled up. All right. Awesome. So something that's interesting about CSX 116 and CSX 119 in real life is that passenger trains were actually pulled by them when they were painted in this particular paint scheme. So Pennsylvania Railroad passenger cars would not have been pulled by these F units in real life. Most times when these units were pulling passenger trains, they were pulling the passenger trains from the MARC commuter railroad. And MARC is a commuter railroad that's based in Maryland, in kind of like the Baltimore and D.C., Washington, D.C. region. But in the 1990s, these particular CSX units were frequently seen pulling passenger trains through MARC. Now, in real life, CSX 116 has been repainted back into its original paint scheme when the actual locomotive was first built for a different railway back, I think, in like the 1950s or 1960s or so. And CSX 119, unfortunately, is actually sitting, I think, in some train yard somewhere, currently rusting away, unfortunately. But both of these do still exist in real life. Just the B unit, or 119, is no longer running. And 116 has been repainted to a different paint scheme. But we're going to see how these F units run with this passenger train consist here. And in case you're wondering, this GG1 is actually a locomotive that I did have running with this passenger train consist. But I thought, you know what, these CSX units, when they were painted like this, did pull a passenger car, so why not have these pull some passenger cars on my layout here? And I think in the future, in terms of passenger trains, I'll definitely have these units pull those. And the passenger cars I'll probably have these pull will be something like this that you see back here. I have a set of these metal passenger cars, and I'll probably have those be pulled by these CSX units. But let's go ahead and see how these run with the passenger train that I have on here now, this Pennsylvania consist. I forgot I had it backwards because I had to couple it up. There we go. These actually look good with the passenger cars. You know, the red passenger cars paired up with the yellow, blue, and gray locomotives. These run great with the passenger cars. Do one more go around. Oh, this just uncoupled as I was stopping it. I may have to adjust these couplers at some point later on. But wow, I'm definitely impressed with how these Athearn locomotives have been running, both with the passenger cars and just by themselves as well. As I've said many times in the past, the Athearn brand's locomotives from the 1990s or from the Blue Box era, like what you see here, are very reliable and usually run quite well. And these are certainly no exception to that, for sure. So I am definitely happy that I got these two locomotives to add to my fleet of CSX locomotives. In the end, I'm very impressed with how all of these locomotives performed, both running by themselves and running with passenger or freight trains as well. I'm definitely happy that I found all of these on trains.com. All these I pretty much came across by chance. I might have been doing just various searches for, maybe like Pennsylvania Railroad locomotives or CSX locomotives. And this Reading one I did come across. I think I was just doing like a general search for HO scale locomotives of a certain price range. And in total, all these locomotives together, although I purchased them separately, totaled below $140. I think that's just really awesome that you can go on sites such as trains.com and even find locomotives like these, in local hobby shops or at train meets for these good prices. Bachmann, Hathorn, and AHM are all, I think, very solid brands in terms of reliable and good quality locomotives and everything too. Yeah, sure. Some things, are missing in like the fine detail departments on all these for sure. Like the AHM locomotive was made in the 1970s, so it's definitely missing some fine details on there. And the Athearn locomotives are quite well done, but they are missing some, details and parts. Like there is actually no window piece inside of here. You can always get those as like an aftermarket piece or just make your own. And the Bachmann Spectrum GP30 Reading Lines locomotive, I think this is actually very well done in terms of detail. Although in real life, I don't think this entire thing would be this particular shade of yellow as far as the railings go. But these are all budget grade HO scale locomotives. And in spite of the lack of certain fine details, I think these are really good in terms of the overall quality and everything. And for those of us who are trying to be budget-minded in terms of their HO scale trains and their HO scale train layouts, locomotives like these, I think, are really good buys to consider for your fleet of HO scale trains. So, yeah, I really had fun filming this video like I always do for these HO scale train testing videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as well. So, yeah, as always, feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the video in general, and perhaps which one of these locomotives that I tested and featured in the video was your favorite, or if maybe you have any of these locomotives on your own HO scale train layout. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.